As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and everyone is wondering about the Georgia indictment. Well, I'm going to bring my friend Mike Davis on, who is an attorney. He's a former law clerk for Justice Gorsuch, and he is the founder of the Article 3 Project. I want him to give his analysis because obviously I'm limited in what I can say, but he is a great legal expert and is going to join us right after this. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you. So joining me now is my good friend, Mike Davis, who is the founder of the Article 3 Project, which is a great organization. And Mike, you have prolifically talked about the indictment. You have been talking about all of the weaponization of government issues related to Donald Trump, as well as other people. Now there are lawyers like me involved. Obviously, I'm limited as a defendant in what I can say, which quite frankly is frustrating, but you aren't. So I wanted to bring you on and get your legal analysis about this particular indictment and just overall what this does to the legal landscape in America. So from kind of a 30,000 foot perspective to begin with, what are your overall thoughts on the Georgia indictment?
Thank you for having me on, Jenna. And I am coming on here, even though we disagree on President Trump and the presidential race. I think this indictment of President Trump and 18 others, including his lawyers like you, even a lawyer who may not be supporting him right now in the presidential primary, I think it's outrageous what is happening to our legal system and our political system and our country. These are republic-ending tactics by these Democrats. I don't know how you come back from this as a country where you think it's acceptable to indict a former president, a presidential candidate for the first time in American history, along with his top aides, his advisors, including his attorneys and his supporters, including contingent electors to the Electoral College. This is part of a lawfare campaign that's been going on for over a year. Frankly, it's been going on for many years if you go back to the Russian collusion hoax, but this has really been going on for the last year since August with the Mar-a-Lago raid, where they went after President Trump for the non-crime of a former president having his presidential records, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. That's why Congress gives former presidents secure office space, office of the former president, with Secret Service protection, federally funded staff with security clearances. We didn't see any of these records leak from Mar-a-Lago until Biden had Garland send Jay Bratt to raid the former president to get back these records, right? And at the same time that this is happening, Joe Biden got caught with 5 stashes of stolen classified records, stolen from his days as vice president and even as a senator, moved several times, unguarded for years, accessible by their Chinese agents, and almost certainly used by Hunter Biden to secure tens of millions of dollars in illegal Chinese, Ukrainian, Romanian, and who knows what other corrupt funding for the Biden. It seems like every Biden was on the payroll except for the 5-year-old granddaughter who they didn't acknowledge for 5 years. And so it started with this Mar-a-Lago raid, and it has just continued. Now we have Jack Smith indicting Trump on the Mar-a-Lago raid. You have Jack Smith indicting Trump for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Twisting arms politically is allowed by the First Amendment. And if it's a crime to object to presidential elections, Democrats would be in prison for objecting to presidential wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. This idea that you can be thrown in prison for objecting to a presidential election, that's what happens in third world Marxist hellholes like North Korea and Zimbabwe, and now New York and DC and Atlanta. So that's what America has become. This lawfare has continued with Fani Willis. And obviously that's your case, Jenna, which is absolutely ridiculous. This prosecutor is a Democrat hack, partisan prosecutor. She's dumber than a box of rocks, as obvious by her press conference when she went out and gave a press conference. She's obviously colluding with the Biden administration. She was asked about that at her press conference. She had an answer to, it seems like, everything except for whether she's coordinating with the Biden administration. So that's your cue that she's obviously coordinating. She has brought a ridiculous legal theory. She's charging racketeering for objecting to a presidential election. And in order for a racketeering charge to stick, that racketeering is what is used by law enforcement to take down the mob. That's what Rudy Giuliani used to take down the mob. And now Fani Willis is using racketeering to take down her political opponents. This is absurd what she's doing with this. And it's essentially all these different various lawful actions somehow are a conspiracy to do something that's not unlawful, which is object to a presidential election. Again, allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887, twisting arms politically, allowed by the First Amendment. Even if it's an ugly process, even if it's a messy process, that's politics, right? That's how it works. If it were a crime to be a jerk in politics or be boorish, every politician in America, besides Chuck Grassley, my former boss, who's the nicest man on the planet, every other politician in America would be in prison. This is criminalizing the political process. And more troubling is they are criminalizing the legal process. They're making it where lawyers giving advice to clients, even if you think that advice is wrong, or even if you think it's crazy, to criminalize legal advice to clients is so dangerous. Think about this. When Brown versus Board of Education was going up through the legal system back in the 1950s, that was a radical legal theory back then that we had, that separate but equal under Plessy versus Ferguson was just completely wrong under our Constitution. It's the correct legal theory looking back 60 plus years. Obviously, separate but equal is obviously it is obviously wrong under our Constitution, but people thought that Brown versus Board of Education was a radical concept, that black kids and white kids were equal under our law. And it was, just imagine if these lawyers felt that they couldn't bring that legal argument 60 years ago because it was considered too radical, right? It's just like now with this election. I mean, to bring a challenge under the Electoral Count Act of 1887, to bring a legal theory that was published in the Yale Law Review, right? Even if you think the theory is wrong about how you can send up contingent electors, it was published in the Yale Law Review, and that's what they did in the 1960 election with John Kennedy. So, but because it's Trump, because it's conservatives, because it's Republicans, now it's all of a sudden we have the Trump derangement exception to the Constitution, to the First Amendment. We have the Trump derangement exception to the Electoral Count Act of 1887. What they're trying to do is they're trying to say that what happened on January 6th was we had a lawful protest that was permitted by the National Park Service that got out of control and turned into a riot, right? It was not an insurrection. How many insurrectionists get to a floor of a nation's Senate and they don't burn the damn place down? They walk through velvet ropes and they take selfies on the Senate floor. Yes, there were bad actors on January 6th, but to try to lump them all together and say that they were a part of some grand conspiracy, grand insurrection to overthrow the government, and therefore we're going to charge everyone who brought lawful objections on January 6th, including their lawyers, including their top aides, including their Justice Department officials. This is obscene, and this is so damaging to our country. This is so much bigger than Donald J. Trump. And I'm a Trump supporter, but this is so much bigger than Donald Trump. Think about this is how the Roman Republic fell. Well, we had Caesar, who was a populist outsider, and the Roman insiders did not like him, right? And so they waged lawfare against him, and that he felt he had no other option but to cross the Rubicon from Gaul into Rome to take out the lawfare, and it led to a civil war, and it led to the end of the Roman Republic. And I'm not saying that this is going to end in a civil war, but this is going to go into a legal and political tit for tat. There's no chance now that when Donald Trump or whoever the next Republican is back in office, that they're just going to say, you know what, we need to take the high road now and not do what the Democrats did to us. There's no chance that's going to happen. There's going to be a tit for tat, and it's going to lead to a death spiral for our country legally and politically. And it's so damaging, it's so destructive, it's so short-sighted. Or maybe for the Marxist left, this is exactly what they intended, because this is the perfect recipe to destroy a country. I mean, China can destroy our country from within with BLM riots and COVID lockdowns, and now, Marxist-driven lawfare, and not even have to fire a shot.
And I'm speaking with Mike Davis, who is the founder of the Article 3 Project. And Mike, we've talked about how this is bigger than Donald Trump, and I agree with that. There have been so many conservatives that have been targeted by the weaponization of government for a variety of ridiculous, unconstitutional, and absurd reasons. Because you're a lawyer, let's focus on the lawyers for a moment. And obviously, I'm one of them that has been targeted. But what type of chilling effect does this actually have on the practice of law and on the ability to zealously advocate for a client and have legal theories petition the government on behalf of your client for redress, whether that's in the court system, it's legislators, or any other method? What does this actually do to the practice of law when we've talked about criminalizing the practice of law?
I mean, it is so damaging to our republic. I mean, it is a bedrock constitutional right that you have the right to counsel, right? And if you don't have a right to counsel under our system, it's an adversarial system. If you don't have a right to counsel, you're toast, right? It's not like the British Inquisition system where you have a neutral arbiter trying to get to the truth, on behalf of the court. In our system, it's the plaintiff and the defendant, the government or the defendant. They have to put on their own case. They have to put on their own prosecution. They have to put on their own defense. You can't really do that without an attorney. There are some people who can do it pro se, but it's very, very, very rare. And think about this, like the Gitmo detainees, right? Those should be the most unpopular people on the planet, right? Because they waged war against the United States on 9/11 and killed thousands of people. They waged war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And, there's a chance, small chance that, some of those people could be innocent, right? And so do you want attorneys at these big law firms, like Eric Holder sent his fancy attorneys to go provide their pro bono representation to these Gitmo detainees? Of course, they let January 6th defendants, Americans, rot in the DC gulag during this time. But do we want a system where if you go represent a Gitmo detainee, a very disfavored defendant, and you make a legal theory, you make a legal argument based upon an out there legal theory. Do we want to criminalize that? Because that's how these Gitmo detainees won their habeas rights with the Supreme Court, was lawyers making pretty novel legal arguments based upon pretty out there legal theories, and they won in the Supreme Court, right? And so, do we want to punish that? Do we want to send a message to lawyers that if your legal argument is not accepted by the uniparty, that you could face prison? I mean, that's insane. That's what you do in Zimbabwe, and now apparently again in New York, DC, and Atlanta.
Yeah, and Mike Davis, with the Article 3 project, this is something that to me, it is a chilling effect on the practice of law, because how would we then distinguish between what novel arguments or cases of first impression or zealous advocacy actually means in terms of the parameters if we're suggesting then as a country that if you lose your claim and you don't prevail, then you can be criminalized? I mean, I'm thinking of lawyers, for example, who went after Marjorie Taylor Greene in the state of Georgia as well, and had this, what I would consider a ridiculous perversion of the Constitution, but they brought this argument under the 14th Amendment, trying to take that term insurrection, wrongfully apply that to what happened in January 6th, but have that argument to try to get her disqualified from her federal office. Those lawyers ultimately did not succeed, but I don't see the state of Georgia criminalizing their conduct, indicting them, or anyone even going after their bar licenses and their livelihood, their credibility. So what's the distinction here?
The distinction is that today's Democrats are leftist, they're Marxist, and it's not our parents' or grandparents' Democrat Party. These aren't liberals who love America and just disagree with conservatives on the best way to get there. These are Marxist. They hate free speech. They believe in censorship. They hate equality. They believe in equity. They hate due process. They believe in Me Too presumption of guilt and the weaponization of our justice system. And Republicans, conservatives are too big of wimps. We let them get away with this, like we've let them get away with this for the last year with this lawfare with President Trump. And I've been warning people for a year, this is not going to stop with President Trump. If you think this is going to stop with President Trump, you don't understand 100 years of Marxist history with 100 million people who have been murdered by these savages, right? So Republicans need to wake up. I think that Southern white male Republicans are the biggest cowards on the planet. They have no backbone. They are so scared of being called racist by Democrats that they are the most easily manipulated politicians on the planet. And you don't need to respond to that, Jenna, but I think Republicans need to give Democrats a healthy dose of their own medicine with this insurrection theory. I just talked about this on Laura Ingram's show last night, but essentially after the Civil War, these Confederate sympathizers kept getting elected to the House of Representatives and other offices. And so as part of the Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to outlaw slavery and to provide equal protection and due process to the freed slaves, they included Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment disqualifies insurrectionists from the Civil War from holding office. And under Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, it gives Congress the power to implement the 14th Amendment. And there is a case from nearly 150 years ago that says that in order to disqualify an elected official under the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, it has to be through Congress passing legislation subject to Section 5 of the 14th Amendment. So Congress has done that. Congress passed an insurrection and rebellion statutes. That it's different from seditious conspiracy, which is what the Biden Justice Department have been charging these January 6th defendants with. But rebellion and insurrection is a very high hurdle, and Congress did that on purpose, right? And so there's a reason that the Biden Justice Department has not charged anyone with rebellion or insurrection, because they don't have the evidence. The January 6th committee looked for several years for that evidence. They found no evidence because it does not exist. Again, how many insurrectionists get to the Senate floor of a nation's capital and take selfies and walk through velvet ropes and don't burn down the damn place, right? And I'm not saying that everyone that day was innocent. There were a lot of bad people that day. There were people who were there peacefully, even if you think they were right, or even if you think they were wrong, even if you think they were crazy, they have an absolute First Amendment right to be there. They had a permit from the National Park Service. There were the people who trespassed, and they should be charged with trespass. And then there were the people who were violent, and they should be charged the most severely. But I don't want to see these people clutching their pearls about January 6th and throwing these people in jail uncharged, without a trial for several years, while they let BLM and Antifa destroy American cities. $2 billion in damages, dozens of lives lost, killed. If you think January 6th was worse and more destructive than the BLM riots like Judge Tanya Chutkan does, then you have a warped sense of reality.
And what do you make, Mike Davis, of the argument that's now being promulgated by Judge Luttig and Lawrence Tribe, who's an attorney? They wrote a piece in The Atlantic saying that there doesn't need to be a conviction. There doesn't even need to be a finding by a judicial arbiter or anything related to a congressional act at all for Donald Trump to just be immediately and disqualified from holding federal office and being taken off the ballot. And some secretaries of state are actually entertaining this theory now to try to take Donald Trump off the ballot based on this insurrection theory. And by the way, I don't see anyone calling for destroying the livelihood, credibility, reputation, bar licensing, or criminalizing Lawrence Tribe for this argument that I think is ridiculous. But what say you?
I mean, let's talk about how can you get more destructive to democracy? We don't like a presidential candidate, so we're just going to disqualify him from the ballot. And we're not even going to do it through a court process with a criminal statute and evidence and a judge and a jury and a trial and a due process and appeals. We're just going to have some partisan some partisan Secretary of State in New Hampshire, for example, just unilaterally decide that Trump's disqualified from the ballot. That is an absurd legal theory. Judge Michael Luttig, this former judge, has just totally embarrassed himself. He used to be a respected conservative judge who was a Supreme Court contender. Justice Alito thankfully got that slot. Judge Luttig has just absolutely lost his mind. He's embarrassed himself. And, same with Larry Tribe. He's like this 80-year-old, used to be a very highly respected liberal Harvard law professor. And now he's just become a Trump deranged leftist. And I would say to Larry, it's time to change your diapers. It's time to eat your pudding. It's time to go to bed, because your legal theory is just utterly absurd and it is highly destructive to our country. And, they talk about breaking apart our country. What do they think would happen if you had these secretaries of state in maybe Michigan, New Hampshire, and other swing states just take Trump off the ballot, and so Biden wins by default? Do you think that's going to sit well in America? That would rip our country apart. And it is a stupid legal theory. It's an absurd legal theory. It's a reckless legal theory. I encourage people to go read an article by Stanford law professor Michael McConnell. He is a conservative, more libertarian, former federal judge on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He was a judge when I clerked for Justice Gorsuch then Judge Gorsuch on the 10th Circuit. He's a very good guy. He's not a Trump fan at all. He's actually a Trump critic, but he is a principled conservative, a principled legal thinker, and he has come out and said that what Luttig and Lawrence Tribe are advocating is just dead wrong as a matter of constitutional law. There is, like we talked about, Jenna, there's a federal statute that deals with insurrection and rebellion. It was passed pursuant to Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, and it was passed because of this controlling case from more than 150 years ago that's directly on point, that if you want to disqualify under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Congress must pass a criminal statute, and it must be there must be evidence, there must be a judge, there must be a jury, there must be a trial, there must be appeals.
So why isn't anyone going after the bar licenses of these two guys that are promulgating a theory that is a threat to democracy and is clearly in the realm of challenging elections or the administration and the identity of someone who's on the ballot? Why aren't they getting disbarred over this?
That is a very good question, Jenna. And maybe we should talk about this more, because I think the Article 3 project, I know you're tied up right now, hopefully not literally, but I think the Article 3 project could use a lawyer with that mindset, to start giving these Democrat operatives a healthy dose of their own medicine. I call it the dead chicken strategy. And just very briefly on that, when I helped Justice Gorsuch get set up on the Supreme Court, I was one of his 4 law clerks, and there's a tradition that each of these justices have 4 law clerks, and they have lunch with each one of the 8 other justices over the course of their clerkship. And so we were only there for a few months to get them set up as the washed up older clerks. And so, but each one of the justices was very gracious and met us for lunch while we were doing our clerkship speed dating, as we called it. We had lunch with Justice Clarence Thomas, and it was the best 3 hours of my life, because if you have lunch with Justice Clarence Thomas, it's at least 3 hours. And we had barbecue. It was out in Virginia, and he was talking about when he was growing up on the farm in Georgia, when dogs killed chickens, you would wrap those dead chickens around those dogs' necks. And as those dead chickens rotted around those dogs' necks, those dogs lost the taste for chicken. And so I used that approach for the Kavanaugh confirmation with the Me Too allegations that came in, 6 of them, and I gave Democrats a dose of their own medicine. You have to wrap these dead chickens around their necks in order for them to stop doing their lawfare. And so we need to give Democrats a healthy dose of their own medicine, dead chicken strategy, give them some of their own lawfare, whether it's the bar complaints through the Article 3 project, through maybe Jenna Ellis down the road, who knows, or when I'm Trump's acting attorney general, or DeSantis's acting attorney general, during our 3-week reign of terror before we are chased out of town with our presidential pardons. Maybe we need to start indicting. Maybe we need to start deporting. Maybe we need to start firing. Maybe we need to start detaining. We need to recommend pardons. We need to give Democrats a healthy dose of their own medicine. Today's Democrats are Marxists. They only respect power. That's all they care about. That's their goal, or their God is power on earth. They're godless. So they only want power on earth. That's their goal or God. Their religion or strategy to get their goal or God of power on earth is Marxism. They can't say that. That's not popular. So they use their religious sects or tactics for their strategy or religion of Marxism, for their goal or God of power on earth. And that is to divide and conquer. It's chaos, whether it's Me Too and the gender chaos with Me Too and 15 pronouns, racial chaos with BLM and race riots and equity, their lawfare against their political opponents, their COVID lockdowns, it's just the COVIDians. It never ends. But it's constant chaos. It's constant division. In order to stop them, we have to give them a healthy dose of their own medicine.
And you spoke earlier, Mike Davis, about unity in the sense that, you're coming on this show and we obviously disagree on the best presidential candidate for the GOP primary, which is a big deal, even though in obviously the grand scheme of all of this and, scheme tongue in cheek there, but within the greater issues that America is facing, I'm disheartened to see people that don't see this as bigger than Donald Trump or bigger than Ron DeSantis. And whether you love or hate Trump, you love or hate Ron DeSantis, we all should be, as conservatives, loving America, loving our U.S. Constitution, loving the rule of law, not wanting to aid in any way in tearing down this country by these Marxist leftists. And so where would you like to see the conversation move from here? Because I would love personally to see Trump stop badgering DeSantis, calling him nicknames, don't spend any more money throwing at him. And I would love to see Ron DeSantis directly addressing these indictments and saying that this is weaponization of government against Donald Trump, even though he's a primary opponent. Be a leader, directly address it, condemn it, and then both of them can appeal to the American people as far as what they believe is the solution, the accountability mechanism, but move forward and at least unite on this. Is there potentially any hope for that, or how would you like to see the conversation progress, at least in an ideal world within the GOP party, at least?
I mean, I agree with everything you just said there. We need to come together as a party, and primaries are healthy. Primaries are important. You have a debate of ideas, but I agree with you. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. This is so much bigger than Ron DeSantis. This is so much bigger than the Republican Party or even one presidential race. This is about our country. This is, as I said, these are republic ending tactics. We have not indicted a former president or a presidential candidate in American history. This is the first time in American history this has happened. And we've had now with Trump 2 impeachments and 4 indictments, and it's all bogus. It's all lawless. This is all bogus. And it just, frankly, I mean, politically, I love it because it's having the opposite effect of what the Democrats intended. They thought that they were going to indict Trump once, give him the nomination, and have a weakened Donald Trump who they could beat. I don't think that they understood that they can't stop themselves. They did the same thing during the Kavanaugh. They couldn't just stick to Christine Blasey Ford, who was lying through her teeth, but she was the most credible. They would have won. They would have stopped Kavanaugh. And I ran the confirmation. I know this. They would have stopped Kavanaugh. They would have Democrats would have stopped Kavanaugh. They would have won the Senate. They would have blocked the Kavanaugh seat for the next 2 years. They would have won the White House. They would have won the Supreme Court. They would have won the country. It would have been game over America. But they couldn't just stick to Christine Blasey Ford. They brought in 5 other goofballs, including Michael Avenatti and Julie Swetnick. And then not only did we confirm Justice Kavanaugh for the rest of his life, we sent 4 Senate Democrats into early retirement in a year when Democrats won the House of Representatives. We ran the dead chicken strategy. We're going to do the same thing this election. Democrats couldn't just stick to the Mar-a-Lago raid with the presidential records. Again, their strongest case, but that's their strongest case, but it's legally, it's wrong as a matter of law because the Presidential Records Act, not the Espionage Act, but they couldn't just stick to that. They had to bring in 3 other lawsuits. They brought in Alvin Bragg's goofy criminal indictment, actually 4 other lawsuits, because they brought in Alvin Bragg's goofy criminal indictment in New York for the non-crime of a businessman settling, a non-crime of a businessman settling a nuisance claim, and somehow Alvin Bragg turned that into a campaign finance felony. It's absurd. And then you had Tish James, the New York Attorney General, bring the civil fraud lawsuit against Trump for the non-fraud of a businessman paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks in full with interest. And then you have Jack Smith with the Mar-a-Lago raid, which again is their strongest case, but it's legally flawed. But they couldn't just stick to that. Then they brought Jack Smith, who got reversed unanimously by the Supreme Court the last time he went after a likely Republican presidential contender, former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. Jack Smith brought a bogus corruption case against him, won a conviction, won on appeal, and got reversed unanimously by the Supreme Court several years later after the damage was done, after they took out Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell as a likely presidential or vice presidential contender in 2016. But the damage was done. They're running the same play now. But we have Jack Smith with his January 6th theory, which we've talked about, which is bogus. And then Fani Willis, who's the Michael Avenatti of this, has brought in her bogus theory. And she couldn't just stick to a bogus theory. She made it a really bizarre, laughably stupid theory called racketeering and brought in 19 others, 18 others besides Trump. It is the dumbest case I've ever seen. It's the most destructive case I've ever seen. She's going to get reversed on appeal, probably by the Supreme Court, but she'll probably win a criminal conviction with an Atlanta judge and an Atlanta jury and a dumpster fire of a legal system in Atlanta, but she's not going to prevail as a matter of law on appeal even if it has to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Well, Mike Davis, I really appreciate all of your insights and your willingness to stand up and fight for this country and your perspectives on lawfare. How can people support you and the Article 3 project and find out all about the good work that you're doing?
Thank you very much, Jenna. You can donate at article3project.org, article number 3project.org. We are lean and mean, and we spend the money wisely. At Article 3 Project, at article number 3 Project on Getter, Twitter, Truth, and at MRDDMIA, MRDDMIA. My initials in Des Moines, Iowa. I want to say this because you're probably too modest to say this. People need to donate to Jenna Ellis's legal defense fund. She should not be bankrupted and destroyed for representing a client. So people need to go on there and donate to her like I did. Even though we disagree on the presidential election, I would be the biggest hypocrite on the planet if I didn't defend Jenna Ellis on this lawfare because I disagree with her on the presidential race.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your support and pushing that out on publicly on social media and also on this show. So thank you for your support and recognizing that we can all disagree on politics, but we should all unanimously agree on the principles of freedom and liberty and the Constitution in this country. So thank you so much and look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you, Jenna.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on his MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for only $19.98. The regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, which I love, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of the amazing products you've had your eye on from MyPillow. So go to mypillow.com and enter promo code Jenna to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98. You can go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Be sure to use the promo code Jenna. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna.